What's up, Inspired Vision 8th grade class? This is your third part for your STAAR TEKS 8.7 review. So, if you are not ready to work on questions 16 through 23, please watch one of the other parts, part 1 or part 2. We are about to start part 3. Here is our first question, part 3. We're talking about a desk telephone. They want to know the value for x. Now, if you notice, we have a triangle. Whenever we want the third side of a triangle and we're given two sides, we want to use Pythagorean theorem. Remember that C is your longest side. So our longest side in this triangle would be which one? The x, the 9.5, or the 11? The 11 is our C. So that makes the x and the 9.5 our A and our B. So we're going to have x squared plus 9.5 squared equals 11 squared. The first thing we need to do is figure out what 9.5 squared is. Which is 90.25. And now we need to figure out what 11 squared is, since we can't figure out what x squared is yet. Which is 121. Now remember, if we're adding and we don't have x squared by itself, the first step we need to do is subtract. And what are we subtracting? We're subtracting the extra number. So we're going to subtract 90.25 from both sides. And we have 30.75. We only have one more step to do in this problem. The last step we need to do in this problem is to take the square root. Remember, when we're doing the square root, we're using the second x squared key and then type in 30.75. Alright, hopefully by now you have your answer for x. The only thing left is we have to round this answer to get one of our answer choices. So pick the one that is rounded up and you should have answer D. Alright, next question. Here is number 17. We have another triangle. Whenever we have two sides, and we're asked to find the third side, we're going to use Pythagorean theorem again. Remember, our C is our longest side, which is across from the 90-degree angle. So, which one would be the C? Would it be 6, 26, or X? In this case, our C is our x. So the other two sides are our A and our B. It doesn't matter which one. So now we do 26 squared plus 6 squared equals our x squared because our x is our C. Okay, we need those numbers. So you're typing in 26 squared in your key. You're just hitting the x squared key for the squared. And that is 676 plus 36. Now, since these are on the same side, we need to add. And those are considered like terms because they're on the same side. So we need to add these together to get 712 or 712. Okay, now we only have one more step. Since we don't have to subtract anything, since both of those numbers are on the same side, all we have to do next is take the square root. Okay, so hopefully you hit second x squared, 712, and you have the answer of 26.68. If I'm going too fast, please raise your hand and pause the video. That way you can ask the teacher in the room to help you. And if we round this answer, our answer will be A. Alright, next question. Number 18, we have a ladder leaning against the wall. By the way, they love these questions on the STAAR. They love leaning ladders against the wall on STAAR. So you're going to see this again. Now we have two sides. We have the 4 and the 10. We're trying to find the height of the wall, the distance from the top of the ladder to the base of the wall. So this is our other side. So whenever we have two sides and asked to find the third side, we're going to use Pythagorean theorem. Okay, now C is our longest. So our first step is to figure out where C should go. C should go across from this 90-degree angle. So that makes the 10 the C. So our A and our B we can fill in. That means 4 squared is my A. We don't know our B, so I'm going to call that X, or you can just say B there, and then 10 squared. Okay, now finish this. 4 squared, 16. 10 squared is 100. So are we going to add or subtract as our next step? Alright, hopefully you are subtracting 16 on both sides to get x squared by itself, which means you now have x squared equal to 84. You only have one more step, and that is to take the square root of both sides. And if you take the square root of 84, that's going to give you 9.16. Okay, we're going to round this to get the closest answer, and your answer should be A. Alright, next question. Okay, this time it's not very clear. It gives us a picture of a pond, but it is making the distance across the pond, and the way that it's making this distance is by drawing a triangle. So it's not obvious that we're making a triangle at first, but they put this dashed line through the middle of the pond, so it is making a triangle. And just like the last questions, whenever we know two sides and we're trying to find this third side, we're going to use Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so now we need to figure out what is our longest side, which I accidentally marked for you because that distance across the pond will be the longest side because it's across from the 90-degree angle. So that is our C. So they gave us our A and our B, which makes this very easy. So our A is going to be 8. Our B is going to be 6. And we do not know our C yet. So figure out what 8 squared is. And then what our 6 squared is. Okay, then we're going to add these together. And the reason why we're adding is because they're like terms. And then we're going to take the square roots. Okay, that is going to give us 10 as our C. Now, they did something very, very tricky for us because that was really easy. If you think your answer is 10, you are not right. There is one more thing going on in this problem. It's this. We can't ignore this scale. They said 1 inch is 2 yards. Right now, we have our C as 10 inches. And we want to figure out how many yards that would be, because they want to know the distance in yards. So if 1 inch is 2 yards, that would mean 10 inches is 20 yards. So 20 is the final answer we're looking for. Little tricky, little tricky. Okay, next question. Okay, this time they didn't give us a picture, but they did say one motorcycle goes 15 kilometers north. So if I make a point, one of my motorcycles went 15 kilometers north because it goes straight up. Then the second one goes west. West would look like this, going to the left, and this time it's 32. And then they want to know the value between the motorcycles. Well, that means you have a triangle. And since one's going north, the other's going west, that makes a 90-degree angle. So, since they gave us two values, they want to know this. This is our missing side. We're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And our longest side here is x. So, that means we fill in our a and our b. It doesn't matter which one we say is our a or b because it's going to be the same in this case. Okay, you tell me what 15 squared is, and then 32 squared. Alright, are we supposed to add or subtract? Alright, we only have one more step. So your answer for C should be 35.34. They want to know the closest distance, so we're going to round this number, and our best answer is H. Okay, next question. We only have 3 questions left, by the way. Here comes 21. If you haven't noticed yet, we're doing a lot of Pythagorean theorem. And here is another triangle. They gave us 2 sides. I'm trying to find the third side. So you're going to have to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared again. We got to figure out what the longest side is, so we go across from the 90-degree angle, which makes, in this case, 26 RC. So we say x squared is our a squared, b squared is 10 squared, and c squared is 26. So we need to figure out what these numbers are. You should have that. Now to get x by itself, x squared by itself, are we going to add or subtract? Okay, and that means we only have one more step. This one came out really nice. No need to round here. Our x, which is our distance that we're trying to find here, is 24. And that is our answer. They're not asking us to do anything else. All right, next question. All right, this time we're going to be talking about distance using coordinates, but we're still using Pythagorean theorem. Here is our first question. All right, in order to do this question, we got to think, okay, this point R is at the point 2, 1. This Q is at 7, 1. Between 2 and 7 is 5 spaces, or you can just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this length on this triangle is just 5. We would do the same thing for P. P is at 2, 13. We could think, okay, 1 and 13, between 1 and 13 would be 12, or we can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So really we're just dealing with a triangle that has 5 and 12. So the coordinates are just to help us get these numbers. They want to know the length of PQ. PQ would be our x. And whenever we know two sides and we're trying to find the third side, we're going to use Pythagorean theorem again. We just got to figure out, where does our C go? Our C goes across from the 90-degree angle, so our C would be the x in this case. So that means a squared is 5 squared, b squared is 12 squared, and we don't know c squared. So this works just like the other ones. We need to figure out what 5 squared is, and then we need to figure out what 12 squared is. And then next we need to figure out, are we adding those numbers, or do we need to use subtraction to get c squared by itself? Okay, we're adding, so we only have one step left. Use your x squared key here, and you should have the answer of 13. 13 is our C, and our C is our PQ in this case. So that means my answer here is 13. Alright, that wasn't too bad. We only have one more question. Okay, this question is completely different. This question, we have the CD has an endpoint at 2, 1. And we have a midpoint, which means it is exactly in the middle. Now C, let's call this one of our endpoints, and then our midpoint is here. Now, in order to get this question right, you got to think in terms of x and in terms of y. Okay, so if we find D, we want to think in terms of X and Y. So for X, we're thinking, okay, we go from 2 to 8, which 2 to 8 would be adding 6. That's the only way you can go from 2 to 8. Or you can think 8 minus 2 is 6. So we're going to have to do the same thing to get the D. If we take 8 and add 6, then we're at the number of what number? Then we're going to do the same thing with Y. So we're going to start at -1 and get to 3. Now you can either do 3 minus -1. That might be a little bit easier to think here. Or -1 plus what is to 3, because we're getting bigger, so we're going to have to add. So if you do 3 minus -1, we're actually adding 4. So -1 plus 4 gets us to 3. So now that we're going to do the same thing to get to this point. And the reason why we're doing this is because it says midpoint. So midpoint's halfway in between, so we've got to figure out what the pattern is to find our last point, which is 7. Alright, now, here's what makes this question tricky. Since they didn't give us a picture, we're going to need to graph this. So either draw a graph or use the graph paper that they gave us. And we're going to have to plot each one of these points. So my first point is at 2, -1. And then I'm going to have to count this out. My next point is at 8, 3. My next point is at 14, 7. These should make a straight line because here's what happens next. We actually have a triangle that's being made. So you know how we went from our x coordinate, we went 6 to go from 2 to 8? Well, that is the length of my triangle. It's 6. And then we went from -1 to 3. That is our height of our triangle. And then our new triangle, we're going 6 more. Which makes our total length of our triangle to be 12. And our total height of our triangle, since we went 4 more, to be 8. We need to find the length of CD. So we need to find from here to here. That is going to be our C in the triangle. So all that said and done, and we just need to use Pythagorean theorem again. A squared plus B squared is C squared. Our A in this problem is 12. Our B in this problem is 8. The reason why is because we went 4 up and then we went another 4 up. Or we added these two together. 4 up, 4 up. That's another way to think about it. That's how I'm getting this 8. How I'm getting this 12, we did the 6 plus 6. Okay, let's finish this problem. 12 squared and 8 squared. We're going to add these together because they're on the same side. And then finally, to get C by itself, we take the square root. Okay, and that gives us exactly our answer. Very interesting question, and that was our last question. Okay, until next time.